What's up, Melanated family? This is your boy Harrison bringing you a brand new episode of the Melanated Convo podcast. I hope everybody is doing good in this quarantine situation that we find ourselves in. This is I don't know what the fuck this is. We've been dealing with this for several days now, so I hope everybody is, figuring out the best way to stay in good spirits. I know a lot of people in our community has been affected by this financially. Some people have even had family members or people they may be close to who has been sick from this COVID-19 situation or even died. So my condolences to everybody out there who has had to deal with an actual family member being affected by this virus, because a lot of times when we see things like this go on, it's not really hitting close to home when it isn't happening to you personally. So you may, not take it as serious as you should, even though me personally, I have a lot of questions surrounding the validity of COVID-19 and where it comes from and all these different things. But that's another story altogether. At the end of the day, there are people in our community and in our country being affected by this thing directly. So for all people out there that have been affected by this virus, again, my condolences and my prayers go out to your family. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in to another episode of the Melanated Convo podcast, where we basically touch on a serious topic every show. Sometimes I have guests, but we try to touch on a serious topic either facing our children, facing our community. Sometimes, like today, I'll touch on some things that have to do with our history. Also on the show, we like to discuss black businesses. The financial health of our community is imperative if we are looking to move forward in the most positive way possible. So finances and supporting our community is definitely something we all should be doing. Also on the show, I go over different news stories, so different things going on in the melanated community that has to do with our children, has to do with police brutality, anything going on in the news that I think the family should know about. I definitely try my best to touch on that. And like I just mentioned today, on today's show, the topic will be surrounding, because of all of this isn't a new thing, but recently we've seen a lot of police brutality. We've seen a lot of types of vigilante justice that's been handed out by different white supremacists in our society. So I wanted to just touch on the formation of the police forces in America, the formation of slave patrols, and just kind of give a little information about how some of this correlates to what we go through today, right? So let's get everything started. First thing I want to touch on, we're going to go ahead and get the black businesses out the way first. Have a couple businesses that I want to discuss. First business being Power in One Clothing. I spoke a little bit about them last week. Like I said, every business I like to advertise for at least 2 weeks in a row. This week, we're going to do Power in One Clothing again. This is a clothing line where they basically say their mission is to empower lifestyles by igniting the fire within each of us. Whether it be fashion or whatever, just any idea that you have, feeling empowered to express that any way that you want. And also, it allowing you as an individual have the power to affect change within yourself, the community, and the world. Now, Power in One Clothing has a lot of shirts that have empowering messages on them, like, guided by the ancestors, or hands up or hands down, fist up. That's another one of their shirts that I like. Different hats on the website, female gear as well. My brother Zoe Williams, who is a radio host, television personality, relationship guru out of LA, he has clothes on Power in One site as well. One of the sweaters I've actually purchased, which is the relationships is the University of You gear, and really, really, really dope sweaters. So everybody out there who can hear the sound of my voice, go to poiclothing.com. The name of the company is Power in One Clothing. Go to poiclothing.com. Check out some of the gear. Like I said last week, man, we spend a lot of money outside of our community on fashion. We are considered to be the leaders in culture when it comes to how we look, how we talk, how we present certain things. So the same way we have made different companies outside of our culture rich, when we talk about Gucci, Fendi, Champion. I mean, all these companies that aren't in the black community and don't really help us out in any way. We put a lot of money in their pocket every year, Jordan included, right? So I think sometimes it doesn't hurt, y'all, to try to find a black business you can support who still got dope clothes, right? And if we make these fashion brands hot, then the world will take notice, right? So go to Power in One Clothing, that's PIO clothing.com. Check out some of the gear. I'm sure you'll find something there that you like, right? Now, the other business that I want to reach out, or the other business that I want to speak on today, is a company by the name of blackfreedom.com. Now it's spelled BLACKFREADOM. So that's blackfreedom.com. Now this is a company that makes posters based on inspiring people from our past. So there's posters with Malcolm X, there's posters with Angela Davis, Maya Angelou, James Baldwin, Toni Morrison, just to name a few. And these posters basically has a picture of that particular person with an inspiring message written on it. The backdrop is like the a dictionary from like the slave times, or a dictionary from a long time ago, but it's really, really, really dope designs. I recommend everybody to go to blackfreedom.com. That's BLACKFREADOM.com. You get free shipping on any order over $40. The posters, which you can put in the wall in your house, you can put in your office, really, really dope posters with you know, that expresses how we feel as black people, right? As melanated people. So the different individuals that I mentioned, Malcolm X, Angela Davis, Maya Angelou, these have been extremely inspirational people throughout our history. And if you go in most people's houses, you'll see pictures of family, you'll see pictures of, you know, different things that they enjoy. And I think it's really important to me that our households are what we have on our walls, and how we're expressing ourselves is reflective of who we are as people. So when I seen this website, I just felt it was extremely empowering. I think I'm gonna get the one that has Malcolm X on it, but I think it's extremely empowering to, in our spaces, like the energy you create in your space is important. And in my opinion, you should try to surround yourself with things that is like a full representation of who you are as a person. And to me, these posters do a great job of doing that. So again, you get free shipping on all orders over $40. Most of the posters are only like $20-something. Some of them I think was like $30-something bucks. So you don't have to pay a lot for them. They're really, really nice. They have on the website it shows you how big the posters are, so they're pretty big too. Like, it takes up a nice size of the wall, but the messages on the posters, I think, is the important part. So if you have time, family, go to blackfreedom.com. Again, freedom is spelled FRADOM, so that's blackfreedom.com. Free shipping on all orders over $40. Check them out today. Now, let's get into some of the news stories that I want to cover, family. So, first news story I want to talk about. So, in April of 2018, a young black brother who was 14 at the time, his name is Brendan Walker, right? So, Brendan, I'm not sure which state this was in. I should have got that. But anyways, I can still make the point. Brendan he missed his bus, right? So he's a 14-year-old kid. He missed his bus, and after missing his bus, he went to different houses in the areas, knocking on doors just to get directions, to get some help, right? He's 14, he's lost, he's probably confused, probably a little scared, right? So he knocks on the door of a dude by the name of Jeffrey Ziegler. Now, Jeffrey Ziegler, his wife came to the door, right? Now, his wife came to the door, seen a black face, and thought that they were getting robbed, or thought that the young black boy was a criminal, right? And keeping in mind, one of the reasons why I'm bringing up this story is because in our society, as black folks, we gotta be cognizant of the fact that your 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old can be seen as a man in society. They don't allow our kids to be adolescents and to make small adolescent mistake. They treat us like grown men from the goddamn womb, right? So he knocks on the door. The wife doesn't answer the door. She looks through the door, screams for her husband that someone's trying to rob him, or there's a criminal at the door or whatever. Now, Brennan can see through the window that the husband is coming. The husband has grabbed a gun, so he just starts running, right? I mean, like any kid would do, he starts running. Mr. Ziegler comes out of his home and begins shooting his shotgun at a 14-year-old fucking kid. Right now, thankfully, he didn't hit him, like he wasn't hit at all, but because it was on camera, because Mr. Ziegler tried to say it was an accident and he didn't really pull the trigger and it was a warning shot. But because there was a camera in his house, it was proven that all of that was bullshit. He was trying to kill the little dude, right? So ultimately, Mr. Ziegler was put in jail for his crimes. He was put in jail. I think he got up to like 7 years or something like that. But I'm reading the story today because he, at this point, wants an appeal because he feels like his criminal, and get this, I think this is a little bit of the white privilege that we have to deal with in society. He felt his previous criminal history shouldn't have been taken into account when they sentenced him, right? He feel his sentence is too harsh. And the first thing I thought when I saw that, I'm like, okay, welcome to the club, motherfucker. Now you see how it feels to get the full extent of the law put in front of you and your past being used against you, right? This is shit that we have to go through every day. But I also wanted to make sure I spoke about this story. Now, of course, he wants to get an appeal. I think the judge denied his appeal, which is a great thing. But I wanted to bring up this story so we can understand our young black men. We need to make sure they understand how big of a target is on their back more times than not, right? Think about this. This is a lost child looking to get information. He could have lost his life just for being black in America. You feel what I'm saying? So when we look at the things that go on, and this is a lot of history repeating itself, but we got to get to a point where we decide, okay, what are we going to do as a people? And one of the first things we can do is inform our children, inform the people around us of the dangers of being black in America. Like, we can't get away from that. I don't like it when a racialized incident happens to a young person or even an older person, and then at that point they want to begin to look at some of the injustices that we have to deal with. Don't wait, family. Don't wait. Begin teaching your kids at a young age so they can know, hey, maybe I'm not going to just walk up to any door because of how I'm looked at as a black man. Maybe I'm going to find a store or find some other place that could be used more of a safe haven instead of just knocking on people's door. Because unfortunately, when your skin is black, just like that lady showed, she didn't see a 14-year-old kid. Unfortunately, she seen a grown black man based on any preconceived notion she has about our culture. And as we've learned, there's several towns in this country, some even being sundown towns. If you're not familiar with what a sundown town is, there's a great book by a white man named, God damn it, I can't think of the author of the book, but there's a great book called Sundown Towns, where he basically, James Lowen is the author of Sundown Towns, where he basically goes over hundreds upon hundreds of small towns and even bigger towns in America that was created by white society to be all white towns. And he would talk about all of the measures they would go through to keep the town all white, whether it be violence, whether it be intimidation, whether it be through the real estate association, right? So that's what I kind of thought about when I seen this story. He could have missed the bus and walked into a small town or a small community that's used to being all white, so they're going to police that community as such, right? So I'm happy the brother wasn't hit. I'm happy that this white man, Jeffrey Ziegler, was not given any leeway. His ass should definitely remain in jail for trying to kill one of our babies. You feel me? So, next news story. Something else that I found today that I found to be quite interesting, right? An Ohio man, I think this is a younger dude. I think he looked to be early 20s, possibly late 20s. And Iowa, not Ohio. An Iowa man, Des Moines, Iowa is where this took place, named Darquan Jones. He was basically attacked by 3 or 4 white men. This happened Saturday, May 16th, around 3:25 a.m. while he was walking to his girlfriend's house. Now, he's saying that the men appeared drunk. They appear drunk. They're shooting racial slurs at him, and ultimately they start beating his ass. They dragged him to a creek and actually tried to drown the brother. Now, What saved him is some tenants of the apartment complex he was in to see his girlfriend. They actually heard him screaming. They actually heard him, asking for help, and they came outside, which caused the white guys to kind of get up off him a little bit and ultimately leave. But the white guys basically told it was two ladies who was attempting to intervene. He basically told him, the white guys basically told them that you guys need to get out of this area, and we're going to get all of you out of here, right? So just like I just mentioned about that book, Sundown Town, right? This is the mentality of a lot of white folks from certain communities where they see you in the community and your crime is actually just being there, right? So they whoop the guy's ass. I think he has like broken bones in his face, a broken nose, like really fucked up situation, right? Now, one of the things that I don't like is Darquan Jones was basically when he was quoted as basically saying that he doesn't know why it happened and he thinks it was a case of mistaken identity. Family, this was not a fucking case of mistaken identity. This happened to you because the color of your skin, family. Just like I was just saying, man, as black folks, we have to begin teaching. This is unfortunate because you shouldn't have to delve deep into racism and how the society functions to a degree to a kid that's small. But it's important that all of our kids have an understanding of where they live. And if you're a black man in fucking Iowa, Des Moines, Iowa, which at one time was a sundown town too, the mentality of the people don't change that much, family. You need to be on point. This is why we, as black folks, we need to realize the times that we're living in, man. I'm not saying you should hurt anybody, but we gotta be on point. We gotta be prepared. So when incidents like this happen, we be ready to defend ourselves, right? Because this guy coming out and saying, I don't know why it happened. I don't think it was racially motivated. What the fuck you talking about, fam? Yes, it was. Yes, it was. The racial slur should give you that goddamn impotence to let you know exactly why this happened. And the comments they made to the young ladies further proves that they don't want your black ass around. So yeah, they was drunk, but the drunkenness ain't why they fucked you up. Your skin color is why they did that to you, family. You know what I'm saying? So man, we need to be on point, family. We need to be on point. We need to teach our children. We need to teach everybody around us exactly how this works so we can be prepared at all times. So the brother, Darquan Jones, I'm happy he's fine. I'm happy he just left out with some broken bones. But brother, learn how white supremacy works, man. Learn how racism in this country works. Read the Sundown Town book. You feel me? Maybe you'll understand. Maybe you'll see some cities that are close to you in there and you will know how to move when you're in those particular cities, right? So I'm happy the brother's not hurt, but we all got to do a better job of understanding who the enemy is and what they're going to do to us, right? Now, next news story. This is going to be a quick one. This was just something that I found interesting. Now, we know the Ahmad Arbury case is still going on. He was a black man who was killed in February by two white vigilantes, right? By two white men who were not police officers. One of them used to be, but they weren't police officers. They had no right to put their hands on a brother. Both of them should get life in prison, if not the death penalty, if you ask me. But one important factor that I noticed a few days ago is Ahmad's mom, Wanda Cooper Jones. I got to salute the sister. Now, hopefully her stance doesn't change and we don't get into a situation where Benjamin Crump is hired and we get a small settlement and then shut the fuck up. Like, I'm tired of that kind of being the pattern when something nefarious happens to a black or brown person. But basically, she went on TMZ. And this was great to me. I mean, this is definitely a step in the right direction as far as how our mentality is shifting towards some of these incidents, right? Now, she was on TMZ and they basically asked her, what does she feel the punishment should be? Because Harvey Levy was mentioning how Georgia is a capital punishment state. And, so he's trying to get a feel for what she thinks should happen. And what she said to me, family, is the best way, the best example of how all of us should approach these situations. She basically said, my son's dead. They should be dead too. Period. Right? It's all, and of course they're shocked. They're like, making all these faces like, why did she say this? What's going on? Look, family, they expect, when something like this happened to us, they expect us to forgive. They expect us to start praying. They expect us to be anticipating that little bit of money so that shit can get just pushed under the rug. I'm hoping this family does not take that route. This family should understand that this is an institutionalized racist event, and it should be taken as such. It should be taken that serious. Getting a little bit of money is not going to bring your son back. You feel me? So to take money, to be quiet, I don't like that shit. Now, when we look back at a lot of how how some of these incidents have transpired in the past 5 to 7 years, we can, as inspiration, we can look to like Trayvon Martin's parents, who are now, because of this incident, they're activists, right? They've put themselves in the struggle of black life. So now they have organizations and they do different things to help us out as a collective. I think that's a good thing. If you can't handle this in the legal system and you don't want to be on no vigilante shit yourself and get somebody to go kill somebody, which at times, I'm gonna be honest, family, violence sometimes begets violence. Like, I'm not with turning the other cheek. I'm not with somebody fucking you up, and when you attempt to do it back, they say, well, you can't do what I did to you. Well, fuck that. We need to get more in that mentality. Maybe some of this shit will stop, and maybe some of this shit will cease to continue. You feel me? So hopefully his family doesn't just take the bag and shut up afterwards and go spend the money. Hopefully they'll continue to be advocates for change. Hopefully they get the right attorney to try to prosecute these motherfuckers to the full extent of the law. But again, like I said last week when we touched on this topic, I don't trust the judicial system. I don't know if they're going to do the right thing. Rarely do they get it right when it comes to black and brown bodies. So, we'll see. But shout out to Wanda Cooper Jones for putting that energy out there, saying, I want the same thing that happened to my son. That's important, family, and I'm 100% with her. You feel me? Now, another quick story I want to talk about. Magic Johnson, and again, every time a black celebrity or a black athlete does things that are, or creates things that are advantageous for black and brown people, I like to salute that, because we have a lot of athletes and celebrities out here that don't necessarily give a fuck about the black struggle. So I like to salute people when I see that they're doing something, right? So Magic Johnson has teamed up with a New Jersey-based financial company to provide $100 million in funding as a part of the Small Business Administrator's Paycheck Protection Program. He basically noticed that as the loans and everything were funneling down, a lot of minority businesses weren't necessarily getting first dibs at that. Bigger businesses were getting their loans quicker. And they feel that it's a mere example of how some smaller businesses don't necessarily have the relationship with the bank as a bigger business may. So Johnson told the Wall Street Journal in a Monday, May 18 article that his company, Equitrust Life Insurance, will team up with MBE Capital Partners, and they'll give $100 into PPP loans to help small businesses owned by non-white and women, right? The retired NBA star explained how crucial loans are to these businesses, especially now that many are in danger of not reopening when cities and states return to normal, right? So I want to salute the brother Magic Johnson for putting his best foot forward, trying to do something in these times. And, we got to give it up, man. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of black folks of stature that's attempting to do something to kind of offset a lot of the shit we're going through with this COVID-19 thing. So, I hope a lot of the black businesses around, even, mine included, qualify for this loan so we can put ourselves in the best position possible. So when this thing's over, we'll be able to last, or we'll be able to still be in business, right? So salute to the brother Magic Johnson for doing what he can to help minority businesses. And, like I was speaking about the two businesses earlier, in some instances, we are so, it's only a few black businesses, and they're far and few between. Like when I drive around my neighborhood, when I drive around my city, in my opinion, it's just not enough black businesses, right? So if we go through a situation where this COVID-19 thing makes some of those businesses that we don't have enough already. This COVID-19 thing made it so some of these businesses have to close down. Then we're going to have even less representation of us when it comes to businesses are concerned. And as we discussed earlier, the financial health of our community is really important, and black businesses are the backbone of that. So shout out to the brother Magic Johnson for doing what he can to help people in our community. Now, for the topic today, right? When we look at all of the racialized incidents that have to do with the police department, that have to do with the vigilantes that assassinated our brother Ahmad Arbury, it's important to kind of get a perspective on where this type of thinking comes from, right? That's why, the past few years I've been really big on learning the history of everything I can, really, but primarily the history of black people in this country, melanated people in this country. And when you do that, it gives you a clearer perspective of what you're seeing, which in my opinion makes it so you're not as reactionary. When you see things going on, you can more or less put together a plan, or more or less contextualize what you're looking at in a way that doesn't make you as angry as prepared and determined to actually do something about it, right? So the beginning of the policing of black bodies in America started in like 1704 in the colony of Carolina, where they developed the nation's first slave patrol, right? Now, the main purpose of this was just to help maintain the economic order and assist the people who were wealthy in this country with recovering and punishing slaves when they done something wrong, right? Now, it's also important to note that slavery at the time, family, from the late 1600s to the 1800s, slavery was a fully institutionalized part of the American economy, right? And it was several laws that were enacted at both the state and the national level that made this the case. Just to give you an example, around that same time, Virginia enacted like 130 different slave statutes. And this was between like 1689 and 1865. And keep in mind, when I say slave statutes, family, I just mean rules and regulations that slaves had to follow, right? And that's exactly how it was. And this happened, and many people think that the slavery and the slave patrols and things of this nature was heavy in the South, which it was, but it was definitely heavy in the North as well, right? So Connecticut, New York, a lot of these states created these statutes to criminalize and control slaves, right? So that's important for us to understand. And also, around that same time, Congress passed like the fugitive slave laws that allow the detention of the return of enslaved slave, or the detention and return of slaves who escaped. And the slave patrols were interesting to me because just like we look at the assholes who killed Ahmad Arbury, these are two white men who acted as vigilantes, right? But keep in mind, family, that in different states, when the slave patrols were enacted, white citizens, white men specifically, they were required to participate in the slave code, or they were required to participate in the slave patrols, right? And keep in mind, this was before police forces were formed. Police forcing would be formed later in like Boston, but the antithesis for future police forces, like the formation of it, how they begin to do their business, this started with slave patrols, where men between I think 16 and 60 were called upon to actually act as police officers, basically. So this is giving them the right to be vigilantes, and they would do this by several means. They would travel around the town looking for any black folks that were gathered in groups. This is why today I think when you see the no loitering signs, this is primarily for us. Even today, when we are when we are in groups, we get a lot of shit messed. We get fucked with a lot when we're in groups. We get harassed. They do what they can to break these groups up, right? Family, this is nothing new. This started way back then, where they would break up groups. They had the right, and these were citizens. This isn't police officers that we're talking about. This is just regular citizens that had the right to go in your house, check for anybody who was maybe an escaped slave. They were able to go through all your shit to see what you were doing. They checked to make sure you weren't reading, checked to make sure you didn't have any writing material. You feel me? Keeping in mind, at this time, a slave learning or attempting to get an education was an actual crime, right? And the slave patrol basically had three functions, which was to chase down and return slaves, provide organized terror and kind of do their best to deter slave revolts, and to, kind of maintain a form of discipline, right? So again, family, look at how we are policed today. Look at how the police react to melanated bodies. Look at how the police treat people in low income areas. And, when the slave patrols were instituted, of course, black people weren't the only poor people in the country at the time. So anyone who was poor was subject to this same treatment. And even when the police forces were newly formed, like around, I think in the late 1800s, when the police forces were formed, they were really, their initial job was more or less not stopping crime, but just making sure people were in the right place at the right time. It was just enforcing the protection of businesses. It was more or less just to protect what white folks had. It was to make sure we didn't fuck with their shit to a degree, right? Because they would make up all these stories that slaves were stealing shit and robbing people. So it became just enforcement of making sure we were where we supposed to be at all times, right? And the slave patrols, the slave patrols kind of died down like after the Civil War and, Reconstruction and all these things took place. But keep in mind, in my opinion, because of that mentality, because the government deputized citizens, I think that it just can continue to a degree. Because after the slave patrolling was done in like Boston, is when the first police forces were actually formed, and they had their racist intentions as well. But after the slave patrol is when we began to see groups like the KKK, who basically didn't want to abide to the new sentiments of the Reconstruction era, the Reconstruction era. Just as far as Reconstruction was just attempting to assimilate us back into society, and a lot of white people didn't like that fact. So they would form their own vigilante groups to kind of make sure we still stood in our place, right? And this would continue to happen. Like the antebellum slavery was really bad. I mean, the amount of years that it lasted, how we were treated, how black men had their balls cut off, and how they created slave bucks whose main job was to impregnate, hundreds of black women just to kind of produce a big slave, if you will, you know what I'm saying? So it was, black women getting hung by trees and getting their pregnant belly cut open and stepping on the fetus. Like, it was some really deplorable shit that we had to face. But you got to keep in mind, family, that when Jim Crow came about, which was supposed to be kind of giving us our freedom to a degree, again, like Reconstruction, kind of attempting to reinstitute us back into society, then we had the black codes that we had to deal with, where the black codes are basically different rules that we had to abide by. This is when you see, we can't drink at the whites only water fountain, whites only movie theater, whites only restaurant, right? So antebellum slavery was bad, but this shit was damn near just as bad. This wasn't a freedom. We were released, but once we were released, the Reconstruction era was probably about 10 years. And within this 10-year time, they seen a lot of progress from us. We began to create our own businesses. We began to create our own community. So what they saw was when we were left to our own devices, we became pretty productive, right? We became effective and began to rely on ourselves because we knew nobody would help us. We knew that there wasn't many members in white society that was going to look out for us. You feel me? So we were really being prolific and doing for self. Then the black codes come and kind of just fuck everything up, right? And create an environment where it's almost like slavery 2.0 to a degree. You feel me? So it's important when we look at everything that's going on today, especially this Ahmad Arbury case, and different things like it. Last week I was reporting on, a black man being harassed by cops. He's just watching an interaction with police, and the cop hauls off and socks him in his mouth and start arresting him too, right? So when we look at all those situations, even the story today with Darquan Jones, the same type of thing, where because of the institutionalization of racism and a lot of the things we deal with today, white citizens think they have the power to be vigilantes and do whatever they want to us, because they understand they're not just backed by the community that they live in, but they're also backed by the government to a degree, right? And that's shown when you look at, the two McMichael family members, the father and the son, who assassinated our brother. Online, there's like a Facebook page or a GoFundMe page, something like that, that's raised several $100,000 for them already to free them, right? So this is just showing that the mentality that they had, that vigilante mentality that they were dealing with, several white people in this country feel the same way. Even going back to George Zimmerman killed a young kid in cold blood. He raised, I think, damn near $1 million. And then he was able to even sell the gun that was used to kill that young brother. And this is a teenager. This isn't even a grown man that he's battling, right? So this goes to show that our black boys, starting at an extremely young age, aren't viewed as black boys. This society will not give them the same ability to make small errors or the ability to be irresponsible to a degree. You can find yourself dead or in jail for a long period of time if you're a young black man just dealing with your adolescence, stealing something, the wrong neighborhood. Any of these things is cause for you to get persecuted. And family, it's merely because your skin is black, right? So today I just wanted to touch on share the information that I have about how some of this stuff works. So all of you, do me a favor, because I think critical thinking is important. So if you hear information from someone, you don't got to take my word for it. Do me a favor and Google slave patrols and read about it. Read as much as you can about how these type of things were instituted against us an extremely long time ago, and unfortunately it hasn't really changed that much. I know people want to think we're in a society that's extremely progressive, and black people now that we can live with white folks, now that we can make a little money, doesn't mean that things have changed much. You know what I'm saying? And I just want to kind of drive that point home to all my people, man. We still live in a pretty fucking racist society, and you're doing yourself a disservice by not addressing that. You're doing yourself a disservice by not talking about this with your children, right? And sometimes we get in a position where we're doing better financially. We had the wherewithal to move outside of the neighborhood or the urban environment that raised us, and sometimes it was a lot of trauma there, so we try our best to get away from that as much as we can. Keep in mind, family, there's nowhere you can go in the globe that white supremacy does not exist. So with that being the case, it's important that we figure out a way to address these things and not necessarily shove it under the rug because you feel you're above it based on your social economic status in the society, because that shit don't mean much. Regardless of how much money you got, regardless of what type of career you've been able to sustain in this country, at any time you can be treated like another nigga, right? Now, I don't want that to be the case for many people, but I'm tired of people not thinking that's the case until some shit pop off with them. Now they want to scream foul. Now they want to scream racism. Family, this is nothing more than history repeating itself. So how about do your due diligence and learn about it? How about teach your kids about it? How about hooking up with people in your community or in your city that's doing their damnness to fight injustice and team up with them? You know what I'm saying? I think we have a large amount of black folks in our society that care about what happens to black people at large. But in all honesty, family, it's not enough of us, right? So that sometimes that's my point of particular news stories that I talk about, or particular topics that I choose, is kind of based on waking black folks up. It's kind of based on giving you a different perspective, so you can get a clear understanding of where we stand. Right? Everybody don't got to be a revolutionary. You ain't got to walk around with a dashiki on. You ain't got to walk around with your fists raised. You ain't got to do none of that shit to care about your people. You can move in silence. You don't got to be online screaming foul. You ain't got to do none of that, family. Do what you feel in your soul. Like, do what you feel fits your personality the best. Everybody not made to be out front, but at the same time, we all should be helping. Whether that's you participating directly, putting your boots to the ground and doing something, or just supporting people that do. Or just having the right perspective when it comes to conversations about black society. When it comes to, some of us are in positions where you deal with, Caucasian people on a daily basis, whether it be at work, whether it be in your personal life. We need to be equipped with the right information. So when we're approached with topics, when we're approached with certain things, we know how to answer it. We know how to combat just a verbal conversation about racism. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes when you have a white friend, they'll kind of say different things here or there to see where you stand on it. And if you don't stand up for your people, you may find yourself getting black jokes or being the butt of different jokes. You see what I'm saying? But some of the best things you can do, I think, if you have a white friend or somebody that's Caucasian that you found yourself becoming close to, educate yourself on how all this shit works so you can talk to them about it. If they're open-minded and they're not, racist themselves, they should be open to hearing, the history of some of the injustices that we've had to face in this country, and how, to a degree, it's not more than, that cycle repeating itself, family. You feel me? So this has been another episode, man, of the Melanated Convo podcast. I want to thank everybody who continues to tune into the show. I want to thank everybody who subscribed to my YouTube channel. Please go to Melanated Fathers TV on YouTube. That's Melanated Fathers TV on YouTube. Subscribe to my YouTube channel so I can get the numbers up as much as possible, because my entire goal is just to inspire people. My entire goal is just to make people think. Of course, I want to eventually get to a point where I'm making money off of YouTube or making money off of my ideas. That's definitely one of my goals as well. But the bigger goal is to inspire critical thought. That's the biggest goal. So everybody who's commented on my YouTube page, on my website, about the inspiration you think I provide and how certain things I've written or certain things I've posted have changed how you view certain things in our society, that is why I do it. That's like the biggest compliment anybody can pay me, is that they're paying attention, is that they're kind of understanding where I'm going with my intellectual property and how I present particular things. I appreciate it. Now, people reach out to me and hate what I do. That's fine too. You feel me? I don't really give a fuck. If you're looking, if you're paying attention, as long as you assess what I'm doing critically, your opinion is your opinion. You feel me? So I want to thank everybody for tuning into another episode of the Melanated Convo podcast. Please go to the website, which is melanatedfathers.com. Check out the latest news stories. Check out our History Matters section. Check out our community forum section, where we post a lot of articles and videos from people in black society that I feel can inspire you, right? Follow us on Instagram at Melanated Fathers 100. You can follow my Instagram page, which is at Harrison Anderson, at Southpaw 100. You can find the podcast everywhere podcasts are available. You can find it on Spotify. You can find it on YouTube. You can find it on my website, of course, and any other place websites or any other place podcasts are. I want to thank everybody who has contributed to my Shelter in Place community outreach program, where we on Mondays and Wednesdays feed people in the community. We have lunch Mondays and Wednesdays from 11 a.m. to all the food's gone. This happens at 3601 Fifth Avenue, Sacramento, California, at Thompson Rose Chapel Funeral Home, our family business. So every Monday and Wednesday we give out lunches. We've been getting a lot of donations so far. We've been blessed to be able to pay for all of the lunches so far with donations. So anybody out there, if you're hearing the sound of my voice, we still need donations. We want to keep this thing going for the, until the quarantine is over, but beyond that as well, right? So if you want to donate, you can go to my Cash App, which is $Melanated Fathers 100. PayPal is Melanated Fathers. You can find that there as well. Venmo is at Melanated-Fathers 100. Or just hit me on social media and let me know you want to donate any way you can, and whether it be time, supplies, finances, whatever you want to do is greatly appreciated. So again, man, I want to thank everybody for tuning into another episode of the Melanated Convo podcast. I'm out.